Holi Festival Explosion. On October 26, 2014, 19-year-old Valentina Muñoz arrived at a large Holi celebration in Santiago de Chile. She had come with two friends, excited for an afternoon filled with color throws, dancing, and music. The venue was an open field on the outskirts of the city, and thousands of young people were already gathered when she arrived. Brightly colored powder covered the air like drifting smoke, turning the sunlight into soft pastels. It felt harmless, festive, and almost dreamlike. Valentina and her friends managed to get close to the stage. They laughed as powder landed on their hair and shirts, forming streaks of yellow, pink, and blue that blended into one another. The organizers encouraged synchronized throws, and each countdown sent huge clouds of powder into the air, hanging above the crowd in dense, shimmering layers. What Valentina did not know was that these airborne clouds were made from fine cornstarch, a substance that becomes extremely flammable when suspended in high concentration. Throughout the afternoon, the atmosphere remained cheerful. People danced without thinking about safety. The powder settled into every crevice, clothes, eyelashes, and shoes. As the day moved toward evening, a performer on stage prepared a small flame effect for the next segment of the show. Workers earlier in the day had expressed quiet concerns about mixing powder and fire, but no one acted on them. Valentina noticed the crowd gathering for another synchronized throw. Music intensified, and she raised her hands for what she expected to be another colorful moment. The flame effect ignited and the air exploded. A massive flash rolled across the stage and into the packed front section. A burst of heat struck Valentina's face. She instinctively ducked, but flames passed across the top of the crowd like a sweeping wave. The powder, coating skin and clothes, ignited faster than anyone could react. People screamed and tore at their clothing. Shirts and hair caught fire. The color that had painted the sky turned black as it burned. Chaos spread instantly. Those closest to the stage suffered the worst burns. Others tripped over people trying to escape. Medics rushed in with blankets and bottles of water, but the injuries were severe. Valentina's friend collapsed on the ground and rolled to extinguish her burning shirt. More than 200 people suffered burns, some of them deep and life-altering. Valentina survived, though the memory haunted her for years. The event forced safety regulators worldwide to rethink colored powder celebrations. The Holi Festival tragedy became a stark reminder that even the most joyful traditions can turn deadly when basic safety rules are ignored. Roskilde Festival. On June 30th, 2000, 22-year-old Jacob Madsen arrived at the Roskilde Festival in Denmark. He had been waiting months to see Pearl Jam live. Rain the night before had turned the field into wet mud, but the atmosphere remained optimistic. Tens of thousands were already gathered near the orange stage when Jacob pushed through the crowd to get closer to the front. By the time the concert began, the front section was tightly packed. Jacob felt occasional surges as people behind him tried to move forward. He adjusted his stance, trying not to slip. When Pearl Jam started playing, excitement surged through the audience. Jacob felt the pressure tighten around him. During the third song, the crowd moved again, this time stronger. People in front fell. Jacob tried to lean to the side, but the weight from behind pinned him in place. The muddy ground made footing unstable. He heard shouts of "Stop!" but the music drowned everything out. Another surge pushed Jacob forward, compressing his chest. He struggled to expand his lungs. Security staff noticed bodies falling, but could not reach them through the density. The band stopped playing and raised the lights, alarmed by what they saw. Rescue workers climbed over the barricade and pulled unconscious fans from the front. Medics performed CPR on the grass behind the stage as more victims were carried out. 9 people died that night. Jacob survived, but with trauma that stayed with him for years. Roskilde became one of the defining cases of how quickly a dense crowd can turn into a deadly crush. Medusa Festival. On August 13, 2022, 24-year-old Carlos Jimenez attended the Medusa Festival near Valencia. The main stage was a towering structure decorated with psychedelic designs, massive screens, and LED sculptures. Warm summer air filled the venue, and the crowd danced beneath the glowing lights. As midnight passed, the wind picked up. Carlos noticed dust swirling around his feet and banners flapping sharply above the crowd. The giant decorations swayed, but the music continued. A few people exchanged uneasy glances, yet most remained focused on the performance. Around 3 in the morning, a violent gust struck the stage. Carlos heard a deep metallic groan that cut through the music. A large decorative arch bent under the force, then cracked. An LED panel tore free and fell toward the crowd. People screamed and scattered, sending a wave of panic through the front rows. The wind grew stronger. More pieces fell. Security shouted instructions, but the noise was overwhelming. Stage workers desperately tried to assess the damage while medics rushed toward injured visitors. Dust and debris filled the air as festival-goers ran for shelter. One person died and dozens were injured. Carlos later described the sensation as watching the sky collapse. The Medusa Festival incident showed how vulnerable massive stage structures can be to sudden weather shifts. Love Parade. On July 24, 2010, the Love Parade took place in Duisburg, Germany. 21-year-old Christina Hoffmann and her friends arrived excited to join hundreds of thousands dancing to electronic music. The festival grounds, however, had a critical flaw. A single main tunnel served as both the entry and exit point. By early afternoon, the crowd entering the tunnel grew dense. Christina, already near the top of the ramp, felt the pressure behind her intensifying. Police attempted to control the flow, creating temporary barriers, but these barriers unintentionally blocked movement entirely. Inside the tunnel, thousands became trapped. People were pressed tightly from every direction. Some climbed stairways, signs, and even scaffolding to escape. Christina could hear shouts echoing through the concrete walls. Shortly after 5 o'clock, the density reached a fatal threshold. People fell. The slope of the ramp caused bodies to slide into one another, forming layers impossible for rescuers to reach quickly. Christina watched as paramedics tried to pull victims out, but the crowd's weight made it difficult. 21 people died and more than 500 were injured. The Love Parade was permanently discontinued. For Christina, the memory of the wall of people and the inability to move remained one of the defining moments of her life. Grape Festival. On August 12, 2022, 20-year-old Milan Kovac attended the Grape Festival near Piestany. A mild storm alert appeared early in the day, but it seemed unthreatening. Milan walked toward the secondary stage just as the sky darkened. A sudden blast of wind swept across the field. Dust rose in curls. The LED screen above the stage swayed. The crew signaled performers to stop. Then Milan heard a sharp cracking sound. Part of the lighting truss bent under the wind pressure and collapsed. Metal fixtures and cables fell onto the ground, sending the crowd scrambling in every direction. Milan ducked instinctively as debris crashed nearby. The storm intensified, tearing tents from their stakes and slamming them into fences. Vendors rushed to secure their equipment. Technicians unplugged electrical systems to avoid fires. Visitors ran for shelter as more pieces of fabric and metal flew overhead. Several people were injured, and the festival closed early. Milan remembered thinking that the storm felt as if it had appeared from nowhere. The event highlighted how quickly severe weather can overwhelm outdoor festivals. Woodstock 99. On July 22, 1999, Woodstock 99 opened on a former Air Force base in New York. 20-year-old Eric Lawson attended with friends, expecting a modern version of the peaceful festival his parents had admired. Instead, he stepped into extreme heat, limited shade, overpriced water, and overwhelmed sanitation facilities. Throughout the first day, temperatures soared above 40 degrees Celsius. Visitors stood in long lines for water. Many began to feel faint. The concrete runways radiated heat like giant stovetops. By the second day, trash piled up, toilets overflowed, and frustration spread. Tensions escalated on the final night. After one performance, groups of festival-goers lit small fires using plywood panels. The fires grew as more people joined in. Security officials were unable to contain the spreading flames. Eric watched from a distance as smoke rose into the sky. Explosions echoed across the grounds when fuel containers ignited. Vendor booths were overturned. Police struggled to enter the area due to dense crowds and burning debris. Woodstock 99 ended in chaos. Dozens were hospitalized. Fires burned across the festival grounds, and the final images became a symbol of poor planning, heat mismanagement, and crowd frustration spiraling out of control. Astroworld tragedy. On November 5, 2021, 21-year-old Franco Patino attended the Astroworld Festival in Houston. He positioned himself near the front of the main stage hours before the headlining performance. The crowd gradually tightened until people stood chest to back with barely any room to breathe. When the performance began, a massive surge pushed the audience forward. Franco felt himself trapped between bodies. He tried to raise his arms but could not. He heard people around him shouting for help, but their voices were swallowed by the sound of the show. As pressure intensified, several fans fell. Those who fell disappeared from view, swallowed by the shifting mass. Paramedics attempted to reach victims but struggled through the density. Franco lost consciousness in the crush. 10 people died that night. The Astroworld disaster became a global warning about crowd density, emergency oversight, and the responsibility of event organizers to prioritize safety above spectacle.